Hello there, everyone. We have a helper again. We're gonna make salsa. We make this every year at my house with our garden tomatoes. We grow our own peppers and herbs, and sometimes we grow onions. And we like to make salsa everywhere here because we use it a lot at our house. We're a big salsa family, aren't we? Yep. And so Bailey Boo here has some black pepper she's grinding in our mortar and pestle. We like this machine quite a lot for a lot of whole spices. To that, we're gonna add cumin seed. So cumin seed is one of my favorite spices to use in the salsa. Okay, crush her in there. We're crushing it because we want all the oils to be released from the spices, so they'll come out better flavor wise in the salsa. And we have a little bit of chili flake. I'm not really big on a lot of super spicy food, but I do like a little bit of heat in something like this, so I'm gonna add a little bit of chili flakes. Yes. How are you doing?
Good job.
High five. Okay, so they're nice and ground up. See, they were. Can I see? Thank you. Good job, Bailey Boo. So they're all a little bit, they're not quite powdery, but they're crushed up just enough so that the oils will be released. I'm gonna take them over here to a pot that I have preheating. I added a little olive oil here, or a lot of olive oil, but so this pot's been preheating. We're just gonna toast the spices in the oil, and that helps further release the flavors. You don't have to have it super hot for this, but just be mindful if you have it at a higher heat that it just might burn on you a little bit if you're not careful. So I try to do it at a medium to medium high heat to allow all the oils to be released. Okay, so we got our spices are sizzling just a little bit here. That's about where we want it to be. And then we have a whole head of garlic. Garlic is really good in just about anything. So we're gonna cook this out just for a second too. Just wanna get the flavor. We are gonna cook this out a little bit after we add everything else. This just helps just ensure that it's not a raw piece of garlic in your mouth when you're actually going to eat it. So next thing I have here is fresh tomatoes. And then I have red onions, different colored peppers, and I have cilantro stems that I chopped up. The cilantro stems have a ton of flavor, so I don't like to throw them out. I like to use them. I like to actually use them in the cooking process first, and then afterwards we add the leaves to the pot. And that way you get the best of the whole thing of cilantro. I'm a cilantro fan, so I put a lot in. So we're just gonna saute these down just a little bit. You're not looking for any color or anything, you're just looking to help release the flavors of everything. And also this will stop the spices from toasting because you just added something with liquid, so that is moist in the pot. It's stopping, cools everything down and keeps things from burning on you too, so that's a good thing. So let that go for a few minutes. Okay, so we're looking at the onions here to be a little bit see-through or translucent, we'd say. So that means things are starting to heat through, which is a good thing. We want that to happen now. And we're gonna add the tomatoes. Ooh. This is a lot of salsa, so this is gonna fill this pot up right away, all the way. So you gotta be careful when you stir it in. Obviously, the riper the tomato, the better. But you know, you deal with what you can get during the year, whatever time of year you happen to be making it. Usually August, September is the best time to get tomatoes because they're all super ripe. Sometimes you can get them a little earlier here in Canada, but in my backyard it's always September-ish is the best. So you get the most tomatoes. So you just let that simmer out. We want the water or the liquid to start coming out of the tomatoes next. And also the salt. We're gonna add the kosher salt. And that will help with that, with getting the liquid to come out. And we'll let that go at the same heat. Okay, so we simmered for about 5 minutes here, and as you can see, a lot of the tomatoes have let out some of their, a lot of their water. So it's mostly liquid, kind of just covering the tomatoes. I'm gonna add a jar of strained tomatoes, or Passatta. Just like this, it's just Passatta it's called. And that will add a little body to it. Sorry, my daughter's playing with the water in the sink, so it's a little loud in here. So that will give it some body. So if you were to say put a chip in there, you'd actually be able to scoop it versus it just being like a bowl of soup or something. And then we're gonna get a little water. About a half a cup or so. And that's just to rinse the jar out, because you can't get it all out unless you do that. So just add it in. This pot's getting really full, but we're almost out of ingredients to add. So just stir that in, let that simmer to kind of soften up the peppers and onions a little further. Okay, we're up to a low boil or simmer, as you can see. So that means we're just about done. So the very, very last thing we're gonna do is add our lime juice and zest. There's 4 limes I've zested and juiced, and cilantro. So the stems we already added in before. We're adding in the leaves now. The leaves are a little more delicate, so we just want to add them at the very end to preserve their flavor as best we can. Okay, stir that in and make sure at this stage that it comes back to the boil before you start jarring them. So in advance, I had already sterilized my jars in the oven at 200 degrees for about 20 minutes. They were in there for 20 minutes, then I turned the oven off and let them cool, and that sterilized them. And the lids and the seals have been boiled and dried ahead of time, so everything's sterilized. And I have a wet, moist paper towel here I have ready to go to wipe the edges, and this has also been cleaned. So everything's gotta be sterilized and cleaned. But because you sterilized everything and this is boiling hot, there's no need to boil the jars afterwards. You just have to make sure they're full enough, and we're gonna turn them upside down. I'll show you in a minute. So we've been boiling for about a further 60 seconds to 2 minutes, and we can start jarring it up. This is also a good place to make sure that you like the seasoning in it. If it's not seasoned properly now, it won't be later, so make sure it's done right now. So when you jar it up, try to make sure you're stirring it as you're going, because the bottom is always hotter than the top, so you want to make sure you give it a good stir. But be quick about it, because once you put the lid on, it's got to be in a boiling hot stage here. So, and it's always handy to have this. I have a canning funnel here. It's always handy to have one of those in the house. So always leave it on a simmer as you move to the next jar like this. And I put the lids on as I go here, because you gotta be hot. You can't jar them all up and then put the lids on, because it won't be hot. And just don't like reef on it, but just get it tight just a little bit. And then turn it upside down. By turning it upside down, make sure that the lid on the bottom, on the inside, is being touched by the really hot salsa, making sure there's no bacteria in there. Also, it helps seal it better, so I find. So that's it, and I'm gonna jar these up in a minute, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you try this, because it's a really fresh alternative to the store-bought stuff, which is mostly just tomato paste and sugar and all that stuff. This is all fresh stuff. We jar dozens of jars a year, and we eat them all every year. So I hope you try it, because that's something we really love here. Thanks for joining me today.